I'm on the way to meet a student who's got a real big issue with nerves. I know they're ready to drive solo, but as soon as they turn up for the driving test, all of the great driving I know that they do goes out of the window. These 10 tips are all of the things I've been working on with them and what I've worked on with people in the past that I know work. Try them out for yourself, be prepared before you get to the driving test so that you can show your best driving too. At the end of this video, I'll be telling you what to do if none of these tips work. There's a fine line between nerves and anxiety. If you cross it, then you're going to need extra help. The first thing to do to beat nerves and increase your confidence for your driving test is positive affirmations. It's so surprising how well this tip works. But if you tell yourself that you're a good driver, if you tell yourself that you're a competent, safe, confident driver, then you'll start to believe it. It's the same way that if you're faced with a really difficult task and the first thing that you tell yourself is, oh no, that's difficult, I can't do it, you won't be able to do it. As a driving instructor, we get checked every 4 years, a bit like Ofsted for schools. And I find the whole process really nerve-wracking. It really does get to me, exactly the same as driving tests get to you, I'm sure. So I can empathize, and here's what I do. I'll look in the mirror and I'll say to myself, I'm a confident driving instructor. I'm a confident and capable teacher. I can deliver a brilliant lesson. The positive affirmations that you use for yourself can be anything. They have to be positive and they have to confirm your ability to complete and perform the task at hand. Here's a couple of good ones. I'm a safe and confident driver. I'm able to pass my driving test. The driving test doesn't faze me. I can show a driving examiner just how well I drive. Try it for yourself. That small act of you believing in you will make a huge difference. Top tip number 2. Eat a healthy breakfast beforehand, even if your driving test is at 8 o'clock in the morning, or some driving tests are at 7 o'clock. Don't skip breakfast. Even if you're feeling nervous and you feel like you can't eat, have something. A lot of people swear by the banana. Have a banana before your driving test and it will kill all nerves. Yes, because of the potassium in bananas, it does cause your body to release a small amount of serotonin, but the amount is so small that any actual benefits to nerve reduction are so mild you probably won't be really feeling it. You'll be feeling a sort of placebo effect. Have a banana, but mainly for the energy. If your body's running on empty, even if you don't feel hungry, that will mean that you've got less energy to expend on concentration, which will definitely cause you to be a lot more nervous, and then your driving test is less likely to go well. Eat before your driving test. Even if it's a small breakfast or a small snack, have something to eat. Top tip number 3, don't put pressure on yourself to pass. And that might be more difficult than it sounds, but hear me out. The more people that you tell you've got a driving test coming up, the more people potentially you have to tell that you failed. So the more pressure you've got on you to pass. Have a plan B. If your plan A doesn't work, which is passing your test first time, of course, but if you've got a plan B, then there's less pressure to pass first time. And the plan B can be as simple as, hey, do you know what? I'll just book it again and do it again. I know there are humongous waiting times for driving tests, which make the whole thing a lot more difficult. But if you don't pass first time, it's not the end of the world. You haven't lost anything. And you can have a go as many times as you want. Okay, sure, it's a slight mild inconvenience, but just see it as a slight mild inconvenience. Failing your driving test isn't the biggest deal. It's not the worst thing that's going to happen to you in your life at all, by a long way. So, hey, if you don't pass first time, that's okay. Okay, number 4, this tip is actually legit. Talk to your examiner. Make conversation with your examiner. They are just human, but the first time you meet them, they're going to feel really scary. They rock up in a high-vis jacket, they've got an iPad, they're almost literally holding your driving license in their hand. That initial interaction is going to be nerve-wracking, but I tell you what, as soon as you make conversation with another human who's in a position of authority like the examiner is, it breaks down the barrier between you and them so that eventually, if you've made enough conversation, they'll just feel like another human. Ask them questions. They'll ask you questions. They've got icebreaker questions which they're supposed to ask to break the ice and make the situation a little bit more comfortable for you. A couple of the questions are, what would you be doing if you weren't on your driving test today? Or have you come far for your driving test today? And then it gets you thinking, you're talking to someone, and then you feel a lot better. have some questions ready for them. And if you've watched the channel for a long time, you'll have seen me suggest this before. If you haven't, then subscribe. If you aren't a subscriber, I hope I've given you enough value to earn a subscription from you. So please do click that subscribe button. But here's my number one question to ask an examiner. What's the nicest car that you've ever done a driving test in? Actually, I want to know the answer to that. I'm sure you want to know the answer to that as well. It's interesting. That question is intrinsically interesting. Here's number 5, and I'm a firm believer in self-belief. It links into positive affirmations, but if you don't believe in yourself, if you're not your own biggest cheerleader, then who will be? If you don't have your back, if you don't believe in yourself, how can anybody else believe in you? We've all heard the phrase, fake it till you make it. Fake the self-belief if you have to. If you're really nervous, pretend to be somebody who's really confident about their driving, and eventually that self-belief will stick and you'll be in a much better position to pass your driving test with a little bit of self-belief over any amount of self-doubt. I know what you're thinking right now. Francis, I don't believe in myself. How can I just start to believe in myself? Ask yourself one question. Can you drive? If the answer is no, then okay, fine. Why not? Have you got things to work on? Have you got things that you still need to learn? Okay, then fine, you're not ready for a driving test. But let's break it down. If the answer is no, well, have you got anything else to work on? No. Have you got anything else that you're not good at? No. Is your driving instructor saying that you're ready for your driving test? Yes. Then why don't you believe in yourself? Why don't you believe in your ability? That's when you need to switch the negative talk into positive talk. Remember why you're taking your driving test. Remember that you can drive, and tell yourself until you believe it. Okay, here's number 6, and this is another one that I do for me as well when I'm facing a nervous situation, like my retest from the DVSA. What I do is I rely on calms. I think, and I'm not sure whether it's a placebo or not, but I believe that they really do work for me. And this isn't intended to be medical advice. If you're going to take any kind of medication, then please consult with your GP or doctor beforehand. You might have heard of calms and you might have heard of rescue remedy. They're both pretty much the same. They both come under herbal remedies, and you can buy them over the counter from the paracetamol and ibuprofen aisle in your local supermarket. Do read the packet, see if it's right for you before you take anything. And if you do find that calms or rescue remedy does help you, then please pop it in the comments so that I know that I'm not feeling a placebo effect and it really is having some sort of positive impact. Tip number 7, and this one is quite obvious, so we won't speak on it for too long, but be familiar with the test area. The feeling of familiarity helps you to feel less nervous. If I'm driving in an area that I don't know and I'm under pressure, you get something called task saturation. You do want to minimize the amount of things that you have to think about, that you have to have going on while you're under pressure and while you have to perform to a high level. So the less tasks that you've got going on, the less things that you have to think about, the better. So if I know Lewisham, which is where I am right now, and the examiner tells me to turn left, I know what's around that corner and I know what that junction's like. So I don't have to think about it too much, and I can think about my speed, my steering, the other cars and the rest of the traffic on the road, and that just gives me a little bit less to deal with while I'm under pressure. Practice in the test area. Don't take tests where you don't know. Number 8 here might be a little bit controversial because I'm basically going to tell you to watch less of my YouTube channel. But hear me out. Don't overthink it. That's tip number 8. Don't overthink your driving test. You've done all of the practice. You know how to drive. What I find a lot of people do is the day or 2 days before, or even the worst one is the night before your driving test, trying to revise loads of YouTube videos or watch lots of YouTube videos, or asking questions like, what should I be looking out for? Or any last minute tips. You don't need last minute tips. You've done all of the learning. You've learned all of the junctions. Hopefully you've practiced in the test area as well. So the only thing that you need to do right now, in this moment, tonight, is have a good rest. That's your only task right now. Nothing's going to change. Even if you do learn a new tip the night before your driving test, chances are you won't remember it in the morning. And then you'll be so focused on that tip and implementing that piece of new knowledge when you haven't practiced it while driving, other things will then go out of the window and you'll find it much harder to pass your driving test. By overthinking and trying to find last minute tips and last minute practice and last minute anything is you're just going to stress yourself out. The ideal state that you'll arrive at the driving test centre is calm, ready, positive and well rested, and not stressed out from watching 50 YouTube videos last night. And that nicely leads me on to tip 9. Tip 9 is arrive for your driving test nice and early. Most driving test centres have a policy where they don't like you to park up at the driving test centre more than 5 or 10 minutes before the start of your driving test. The driving test centres are a hub of activity, so if people are arriving before their driving test time, it blocks candidates from coming back or leaving on other driving tests. So please do respect that, but come and park up 15 to 20 minutes early, around the corner from the driving test centre. That gives you the time to rest and chill and take a breather. Chances are you will have done probably an hour's practice before your driving test. That's great, do that, you need that. But also give yourself time to rest and chill. Give yourself time to take a breather, a break from driving of at least 10 to 15 minutes, and you can use that time to go through show me, tell me questions. So then it's the last thing that you do and the first thing that your examiner will do with you. You definitely won't get one wrong. And here's my tip number 10, stay hydrated. Hydration is really important. If you're dehydrated, then your brain isn't so sharp. The same as if you're hungry, you think more slowly, and when you're taking a practical test like driving, that's definitely not what you need. The other thing that happens when you bring a bottle of water to your driving test, your examiner is going to ask you to pull up on the left between 3 and 5 times on your driving test. You can use that as an opportunity to stop and pause and reflect. If the driving test is overwhelming, if the driving test is causing you to feel nervous, you can use that as a time to take a deep breath and push out all of the nerves and anxiety. And if you've got the opportunity to, grab a drink of water. Your examiner will use the words drive on when you're ready. That's important. If you're not ready, take a second and chill. Having that sip of water resets your brain, resets the situation that you're in, and allows you to think more clearly than you were doing potentially 30 seconds ago. So use the water to reset your mindset. There's toilets back at the driving test centre, so don't worry, you'll be back soon. And here's the last thing that I'll say, because sometimes being nervous for things is okay. Being nervous is a normal response that your body will deliver, called the fight or flight mechanism. It's your body's way of getting ready for something that's shocking, that's scary, or that you need to perform well at. So if you weren't nervous, then you probably wouldn't be taking it seriously. When you feel nervous and you feel that feeling in your stomach, your adrenaline is going to go up, which makes you sharper, which makes you more alert, which makes you concentrate more. Feeling nerves, that feeling is actually a good thing. Don't try and suppress it too much. Don't fight it. Acknowledge it. I'm nervous. That's a good thing. My adrenaline's up. I'm more sharp. I'm more focused. Let's go. But when nerves tip over and become anxiety, that's when it's a problem. Anxiety means that you can't concentrate. And when you're doing a practical task like driving, not being able to concentrate is a problem. If you find that your nerves have become anxiety, as in not just the fight or flight mechanism kicking in that you can note down and move on from, then you might need to take bolder action to be able to pass your driving test. It's unfortunate. I wish there was a better way of taking driving tests that didn't involve a scary driving examiner in an unnecessary high-vis jacket with an iPad and not very friendly some of the time. But this is the situation we're faced with. Everybody has to go through the same thing. And if your anxiety is crippling your chances of passing your driving test, then please speak to your GP. It's not uncommon for people to have fear of flying. Severe anxiety, meaning that they can't get on an aeroplane. You go to your GP and then they advise you on the next steps. It might be medication, it might be something else. But if you need a driving license and this is the process that you have to go through, which it is, then that might be what you need to overcome your anxiety and pass your driving test. I hope that you found this video helpful. Give it a thumbs up if you have, so that YouTube recommends it to more people. Give the channel a follow if you haven't already. Trust me, it helps me more than you know. And YouTube also thinks that you'll love this video. The algorithm recommends it to you because it will help you just as much. See you in the next one. Peace. Bye.